Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashatya Dishatarine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Dishatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana 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 Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी
यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन
यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन
यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन
यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन
यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन
यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन
यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन
यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन
यमुनातीरावनतारि
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 राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी
जय 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 राधा कृष्ण चंद्र कृष्ण चंद्र
जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे
जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे
जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे
जय कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम
कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय वृंदावन धाम
जय निताय गौरांग निताय गौरांगो निताय गौरांग जय निताय गौरांग
जय निताय गौरांग निताय गौरांग निताय गौरांग जय निताय गौरांग
जय श्रीनिवास गोविंदा श्रीनिवास गोविंदा श्रीनिवास गोविंदा जय श्रीनिवास गोविंदा
जय श्रीनिवास गोविंदा श्रीनिवास गोविंदा श्रीनिवास गोविंदा जय श्रीनिवास गोविंदा
जय प्रहलाद नरसिम्हा प्रहलाद नरसिम्हा प्रहलाद नरसिम्हा जय प्रहलाद नरसिम्हा
जय प्रहलाद नरसिम्हा प्रहलाद नरसिम्हा प्रहलाद नरसिम्हा जय प्रहलाद नरसिम्हा
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की वृंद देवी तुलसी महारानी की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 29th chapter, text number 1. Devahutiruvacha Lakshanam Mahat Adinam Lakshanam Mahadadinam Prakrutehe Purushasya Cha प्रकृतेः पुरुषस्य च स्वरूपं लक्ष्यते अमीशां स्वरूपं लक्ष्यते मिशां येन तत् पारमार्थिकं यथा सांख्येषु कथितं यत् मूलं तत् प्रचक्षते यन्मूलं तत् प्रचक्षते भक्ति योगस्य मे मार्गं भक्ति योगस्य मे मार्गं ब्रूहि विस्तरशः प्रभः ब्रूहि विस्तरशः प्रभो देवहूतिरुवाच लक्षणं महदादीनां प्रकृतेः पुरुषस्य च स्वरूपं लक्ष्यते मिषां येन तत्पारमार्थिकम् यथा सांख्येषु कथितं यन्मूलं तत्प्रचक्षते भक्तियोगस्य मे मार्गं ब्रूहि विस्तरशः प्रभो देवहूतिरुवाच लक्षणं महदादीनां प्रकृतेः पुरुषस्य च स्वरूपं लक्ष्यते मीशां येन तत्पारमार्थिकम् यथा सांख्येषु कथितं यन्मूलं तत्प्रचक्षते भक्तियोगस्य मे मार्गं ब्रूहि विस्तरशः प्रभो देवहूतिरुवाच लक्षणं महदादीनां What word meaning? Devahuti Uvacha. Devahuti said, Lakshanam, symptoms, Mahat Adinam, of the Mahat Tattva and so on. Prakrite, of material nature. Purushasya, of the spirit. Cha, and Swarupam, the nature. Lakshyate, is described. Amisham, of those. Yena, by which. Tatparama arthikam, the true nature of them. Yatha, as. Sankhyeshu, in Sankhya philosophy. Kathitam, is explained. Yat, of which. Moolam, ultimate end. Tat, that. Prachakshate, they call. Bhakti yogasya, of devotional service. May to me. Margam, the path. Bruhi, please explain. Vistarashaha, at length. Prabho, my dear Lord Kapila. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Devahuti inquired, "My dear Lord, you have already very scientifically described the symptoms of the total material nature and the characteristics of the spirit according to the Sankhya system of philosophy. Now I shall request you to explain the path of devotional service, which is the ultimate end of all philosophical systems." Please repeat this translation. Devahuti inquired, "My dear Lord, you have already very scientifically described the symptoms of the total material nature and the characteristics of the spirit according to the Sankhya system of philosophy. Now I shall request you to explain the path of devotional service, which is the ultimate end of all philosophical systems. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this 29th chapter, the glories of devotional service are elaborately explained, and the influence of time on the conditioned soul is also described. The purpose of elaborately describing the influence of time is to detach the conditioned soul from his material activities, which are considered to be simply a waste of time. In the previous chapter, material nature, the spirit, and the Supreme Lord or Super Soul are analytically studied, and in this chapter, the principles of Bhakti Yoga or devotional service, the execution of activities in the eternal relationship between the living entities and the personality of Godhead are explained. Bhakti Yoga devotional service is the basic principle of all systems of philosophy. All philosophy which does not aim for devotional service to the Lord is considered merely mental speculation. But of course, Bhakti Yoga with no philosophical basis is more or less sentiment. There are two classes of men. Some consider themselves intellectually advanced and simply speculate and meditate, and others are sentimental and have no philosophical basis for their propositions. Neither of these can achieve the highest goal of life, or if they do, it will take them many years. Vedic literature therefore suggests that there are three elements, namely the Supreme Lord, the living entity, and their eternal relationship, and the goal of life is to follow the principles of bhakti or devotional service, and ultimately attain to the planet of the Supreme Lord in full devotion and love as an eternal servitor of the Lord. Sankhya philosophy is the analytical study of all existence. One has to understand everything by examining its nature and characteristics. This is called acquirement of knowledge. But one should not simply acquire knowledge without reaching the goal of life, or the basic principle for acquiring knowledge, Bhakti Yoga. If we give up Bhakti Yoga and simply busy ourselves in the analytical study of the nature of things as they are, then the result will be practically nil. It is stated in the Bhagavatam that such engagement is something like husking a paddy. There is no use beating the husk if the grain has already been removed. By the scientific study of material nature, the living entity, and the super soul, one has to understand the basic principle of devotional service to the Lord. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport.
So here it says, the verse says, "En moolam tat pachakshate bhakti yogasya cha margam bruhi vistarasah prabhoho." So the marga of bhakti yoga unto him, bhakti yogasya me margam, it is described by him as en moolam, the ultimate end. So even though Lord Kapila has elaborately talked about the knowledge of matter and spirit by describing the material elements, the material world, how it is manifest, how the different elements interact, what are the characteristics of different elements, gross and subtle, So all these things were a matter of Sankhya philosophy or knowledge. Now, at the end of it, the knowledge aspect, after giving out the knowledge aspect, Lord Kapila is saying that yen moolam tat prachakshate bhakti yogasya me margam. That means this is, Devahuti is saying that bhakti yoga unto you, please explain to me, because that is the ultimate end. So, the ultimate end of acquiring knowledge about material world, material nature, the interactions of the soul with the matter, ultimate end is to use that knowledge to get out of this material world and to engage our attention, our consciousness fully in bhakti yoga when we are in this material world, and afterwards go to the eternal kingdom of God where we can practice pure devotional service in the spiritual atmosphere, which is different from the material atmosphere. In the material atmosphere, there is a difference between matter and spirit. I am of a different energy and spirit of another energy. In the spiritual world, I am spirit and the energy is also spirit. So everything is spiritual there. So engaging in pure devotional service there is a little different from engaging in pure devotions in this material world, because in this material world, one has to counteract the constant pressure of the three modes of material nature, which tries to make us forget our constitutional position as servant of Krishna and make us engage in independent existence, independent pleasure, independent knowledge. This is the nature of three gunas. Any energy that separates us from Krishna, that is called three modes of material nature. Matter itself is not three modes of material nature in that sense, but by default, yes, matter pulls all the living entities into this forgetfulness, unless the living entity is engaged in devotion service of the Lord, who is all pervading, who is everywhere. Even in the material world, he is there. If somebody wants to perform devotion service, then the Lord is everywhere and one can perform devotion service, even pure devotion service, even in this material world. The three modes of material nature will not affect if one's exclusive goal in life is to serve for the pleasure of the Lord, to engage in service for the pleasure of the Lord. That is the Moola Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is a Moola Yoga, is a Moola Marga, according to Devahuti. So, Prabhupada is explaining that we are not against knowledge, we are not against pursuit of knowledge of this material world, we are not against it, but if the pursuit of knowledge is not done in service of the Lord, even as a yogi, forget about other knowledge, physics, chemistry, all those material knowledge you leave it. That also can be doubted. But as far as the spiritualists are concerned, who are trying to get free from this material world is concerned, the instruction is very clear for all kinds of spiritualists, that we have to understand the difference between matter and spirit, which means they have to apply knowledge. It's a fact. Because the living entity in this material world is bound by ignorance. The living entity, the binding factor is ignorance. The ignorance energy is what is binding. We are not physically bound into this body. We may be physically situated in this body because the bonding is ignorant bonding. It's an ignorance. We can be physically situated in this body without ignorance also. So ignorance is what binds us into this body. So that ignorance, that binding process, how material nature puts the living entity into illusion, that knowledge is very important to understand. That is, as far as spiritualists are concerned, they focus on that knowledge, not physics, chemistry, all those things. So that's called transcendental knowledge. So pursuing transcendental knowledge is a very fundamental exercise for every aspirant of Bhakti Yoga also. That is what Prabhupada is saying, that if you don't do that, then your Bhakti can become sentimental. Some consider themselves, there are two classes of men. Some consider themselves intellectually advanced, simply speculate and meditate, and the others are sentimental and have no philosophical basis for their propositions. Srila Prabhupada used to pride in receiving the title Bhakti Vedanta. Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti and Vedanta. Hitherto, most of the schools of thought, the impersonal schools of thought, they separated Bhakti yogis or Vaishnavas has nothing to do with Vedanta. They are all sentimental. But actually there is so much Vedanta behind it. In fact, Vedanta's commentary, natural commentary is Srimad Bhagavatam. And Bhagavatam is the basis for the Vaishnavas. So when Bhagavatam is a basis for Vaishnavas, Vedanta is a basis for Vaishnavas. So we should not shun away from transcendental knowledge. Extremely important. Because Krishna is all knowledge. Krishna is not in ignorance. Krishna likes devotees who engage in devotional service in knowledge, in pure knowledge. You should know who is God, what is His material nature, who we are. All these transcendental aspects of the relationship between the living entity and the Lord, material nature and the Lord, Kala, which you're going to be describing here in this chapter more elaborately, how the living entity is influenced by Kala. So, the warning that Prabhupada is giving is that devotee should neither become too excessively involved, knowledge for the sake of knowledge, nor should they neglect studying this knowledge analytically. We are talking about analytically studying. Everything has got an analytical base. Sometimes we think that the rationality and analytic thinking has no place beyond a certain level of bhakti. It is never true. From here to spiritual world, even in the spiritual world, rationality is a fact because it is a characteristic of pure knowledge. Because Krishna himself is Sarva Karana Karanam, is the cause of all causes. So the cause-effect relationship exists in the fundamental absolute truth. Spiritual world is coming from him, living entities are coming from him, Vishnu expansions are coming from him, Devatas are coming from him, material energy is coming from him. All these things are sourcing from there, that there is a cause. Just like in the previous chapter, how it was described from how the finer elements creates grosser elements. From ether comes air, from air comes fire, from fire comes water, from water comes earth. So there is a causation, there is a rationality. But rationality or logic is a tool. A tool can be applied anywhere. So we should not be against the tool. There has to be rational thinking at all points of time. Even emotions are subject to rational thinking. That nowadays scientists are calling that as, psychologists are calling it as emotional intelligence. How emotion and intelligence connect. Yeah, how you manage, what is the rationality, what is the logical connection between this emotion and that emotion, this thought and that emotion, what is the connection? That is called emotional intelligence. If you don't know how to manage your emotions with your friends, you will fight with them. If you do not know how to manage your emotions, manage means what? Rationally. Oh, you will get upset if I say that. This is not the way to say that. That is the way to say that. All this is logic, no? So, if only one thinks with thoughts, people think that rationality means thinking with only thoughts, operating this tool on thoughts. But you operate the tool on feelings also. You operate these feelings on willing also. That means our activity, action, thinking, feeling, and willing. So there is knowledge. In all these things there is knowledge. If you have to deal in a bhakti, if you are a bhakti yogi, you have to live with other bhakti yogis. You need to have knowledge about emotional intelligence. You need. What is a Vaishnava emotional intelligence? How to interact with each other. And the scriptures describe that. They teach us. This is a mechanism, how you interact with equals, how you interact with those who are younger in Krishna consciousness, how you interact with those who are more experienced and more realized in Krishna consciousness. So guidance is given in terms of even emotional relationship. What is the guidance towards, what is the direction for dealing with the Mayavadis, impersonalists. That is also, like that, everywhere, knowledge is foundation. But without, just if you keep the foundation, then that is not enough. There is superstructure. The superstructure is required. Then only there is a complete picture of everything. So that is, Tattva is knowledge. Rasa, relationships. That is study of love, all these kind of things, loving relationships and basic substance. For instance, Prabhupada says here, one has to understand everything by examining its nature and characteristics. That is the meaning of knowledge. This table, if I have to study this table, its nature and its characteristics. Bodies, human bodies. What is the nature and its characteristics? That is knowledge. You see that as something else. You see that as spiritual body, as Satchidananda. You see that body as a person. That is your perception. That is not knowledge. Knowledge is what is its nature and characteristics. There are two things. One is what is outside you and what you perceive. If you perceive what is outside as it is, then that is called knowledge. When you perceive what is outside as something else, that is called ignorance. That is called ignorance. So there is a constant endeavor on the part of the devotee to continuously see things as they are with its true characteristics. Everything. That is called Tattva Darshinaha. We have to practice ourselves to see everything from the eyes of the Shastras. Shastras are seeing from the eyes of Shastra means what? Seeing things as they are. Shastras are telling this is the true characteristic of this. These bodies are not Satchidananda. The Shastras are saying. They are changing bodies. They are just imitating the spiritual bodies. So like that, one has to see everything from the eyes of the Shastra. This is the training. How will you see that unless one continuously hears from the Shastra? How to see different things? Our mind is full of You can classify everything that we perceive as things, people, combination of people, things, actions, and situations. We can perceive. We perceive that. Now each of us perceive differently. So that perception, there is a perception as it is perception, but there is a perception that can be, you can perceive what you want to think. Whatever you want to concoct, you can perceive. In other words, there are objects, there are people, there are activities, there are situations outside you. And there are also mapping of the things, mapping of people, mapping of activities, mapping of situations in our mind. When the mapping is equal to reality outside, that is called knowledge. When does the mapping does not match reality? Is when you take the mapping and when you want to enjoy something outside, that is defined. This is also definition of, that is called Maya. You will see something else, because seeing means not simply seeing matter. What is its emotional value? What is its physical value? What is all the multidimensional? What is outside? Outside what we see is a multidimensional, gross and subtle material system, and then within that system is a soul, which is spirit, and the soul is accompanied by the super soul. All these are the facts. So when we forget the super soul, that's what Krishna says, anyone who can see the soul, super soul, and the body is already attained the tranquility of mind. That means Maya cannot enter. That means illusory perception cannot come. So our mapping has to match the way Krishna says, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, what is the way of seeing things? One who is in Sattva-guna, one who is in Rajoguna, one who is Tamoguna, how he sees, how he acts, everything is described. So a person who is in mode of passion, he sees the whole world as with a filter of for my pleasure. One who is in the mode of ignorance sees the whole world as hopeless, is frustrated, is lazy, is hopeless, wants to enjoy only sleep. Those who are in the mode of goodness, they want knowledge rasa. They get rasa in seeing things as they are. They get rasa in breaking ignorance. And those who are devotees, they take rasa of seeing everything as belonging to Krishna, and I have to Ishavashidam Sarvam. I have to engage everything in Krishna's service. Everything, every person, every activity, every situation is meant for Krishna's pleasure. And He is all pervading. He is ready to receive the service. Krishna's pleasure never vanishes from the devotee's mind. Just like in a karmi's mind, his own pleasure never vanishes. Isn't it? That's the definition of a karmi, no? Whatever he is doing, whatever he is seeing, whatever he is relating with, pleasure for him, the seeking of pleasure for him never vanishes. That is the characteristic of his consciousness. Maya consciousness. Pleasure means pleasure, power, independent knowledge, independent love. Where can I get loving exchanges? Where can I get power? Where can I get freedom? Where can I get... These are all the things these are the pleasures that the living entity is always looking for. And every activity is governed, every activity is motivated by this. That is his perspective of seeing the world. Devotee's perspective of seeing the world is exactly something else. But the same thing, pleasure is there. He's always thinking how I can please Krishna by my service. How I can give pleasure to Krishna, how I can give love for Krishna, how I can give my chit, my knowledge aspect to Krishna by glorifying him, by constantly remembering his glories, by chanting and distributing his glories. That's all handling knowledge, transcendental knowledge, preaching Krishna consciousness. So giving pleasure to Krishna through knowledge, giving pleasure to Krishna through activities, loving relationship with Vaishnavas, with the deities, loving relationship, offering prasadam, offering bhoga, taking prasadam, enjoy your senses in relationship with Krishna. Krishna is very pleased when the devotees relish Krishna prasadam, the right consciousness. When the devotees enjoy dancing, Krishna is very happy. When they enjoy dancing and chanting before him, Krishna is very happy. So every situation devotee is seeing how the world can, how everything, every person, every situation, every activity can be, every person can be engaged in Krishna's service. Why? Because everything belongs to him, every person belongs to him, every situation is meant for him, every activity is meant for him, everything in the existence serves Krishna. So that is a freedom for a devotee, means he has got freedom from this disease of seeking pleasure. He does not seek pleasure. He only one thing. He seeks satisfaction, service satisfaction. That is his constitution. Our constitution pleasure is called service pleasure. Pleasure of giving pleasure is called service pleasure. So we also have pleasure, but it's called service pleasure. It is not power pleasure. It is not sensual pleasure. All these are not a pleasure criterion for the devotee. Service pleasure. Have I given pleasure to Krishna? Yes, I am happy. It's my pleasure. So knowledge is a very important aspect of devotional service. Continuously there should be inquiry. Continuously Jignasa should be there. And then only one will make progress in life. Only then one will get the rasa, spiritual rasa. And only by chanting Hare Krishna attentively, by giving our full consciousness to chanting, associating with the holy name, that pure chitta will flow into us. We have to endeavor. God helps those who help themselves. You ask, go on inquiring. But the answer is not coming because your inquiry has created the answer. Answer is not created by your inquiry. If you go on inquiring from a person, and let's say he gives you knowledge, can you say that, my inquiry created knowledge? No. My inquiry, and he gave knowledge, so I got knowledge. My inquiry induced him to give knowledge. Similarly, Brahma Jignasa, ask, and the Lord will give. So with great yearning, that means begging, one should chant the holy name of the Lord. The Lord is available to us constantly in the form of his holy name. And then anticipate kripa from the Lord. And that kripa will flow as the answers to all your questions. Then slowly, with all these answers, the way we see this world will be different. It will be tattva darshina, as see things as they are. It's a training, and it takes time, and it needs powerful energy, and that most powerful energy is from the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In questions? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.